Our mothers be fucking us up. You know, so recently, and not so recently, but over the past year and a half or so, I've been going through a life transformation. I found myself, and I learned some things about myself through the use of psychedelic mushrooms and intense trauma therapy that were hard to come to terms with. And part of that work was digging deep down into like, what is the root of my conditioning that has created in me or has had me making certain decisions with my life, just in general. One of the biggest realizations I've had is that even though I've been with women for 20 years of my life, I have never been gay, and I'm not gay. And when I tell you that that is a revelation to have in the middle of a marriage, fascinating stuff. And it was one of the most difficult times of my life. And I've had a lot of death around me, but that was one of the most difficult times of my life. Because, you know, in my 20s, I battled with the religious aspect of my sexuality. Like, oh man, I'm going to hell because I like women. The conviction of the Holy Spirit, which my opinion on what that even means now is so much different, but I battled with that in my 20s. Then in my 30s, I kind of evened out, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm just who I am. But I've never found myself attracted to women who look like me, like feminine women. I've always been very attracted and drawn to strong masculine energy, strong masculinity, dominance, and power, and not the same kind of power women have, because women are powerful, but there is a complementary opposite to that power that's the other side of the same coin. So I find myself digging, like, where did I get my ideas about men? Like, who gave me information about men, and what did they tell me? And my mom was actually, more than I've ever given her credit for, I recognize my mother was such a huge impact on my relationship with men. And you know how they say never take a shirt from a naked man? You know, my mother was a beautiful human being. She was a flawed human being, like we all are. I'm very proud to be her daughter. I always have been, even though sometimes that wasn't easy, being proud to be her daughter, or even feeling liked by her. Or I never questioned my mother's love, though. My mother loved me. But, you know, our mothers be fucking us up, because my mother had her own traumas and pain with men that, to be honest, some of it I can't fathom for myself. I could never fathom surviving some of that stuff, but it was passed on to me, not through someone abusing me or misusing me or hurting me. I actually grew up feeling quite safe for the most part, but it was the mental conditioning from my mother, and also women around me growing up, you know, just hearing women, conversations like, oh, you can't trust men, they ain't shit, blah, 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 blah. And at that age, you know, it's like your brain's a sponge. Oh, this gonna choke me. Your brain is a sponge. And so I'm small and I'm young and I'm hearing all of this stuff, and I take it in. It becomes a reality for me, even though it's not my lived experience. I'm too young to have these experiences, but somehow I have the stories of them, and I have the pain behind them. And so I grow up and I go out into the world, and the first thing I do at 19 years old is go to a gay bar, and I see this lady, and I'm like, I gotta have her. Like, this is happening. This is bae. Back then it wouldn't have been bae. I don't know what words we were using, but, and I was 19, she was 31, And this is not too far off from my mother's story, where my father at 31 went and got my mother from my great grandmother's house. She was 17. So some of the patterns are there, even just the patterns. And it's like, damn, why did I choose a woman? Why was that the connection that I made? I can recognize the fear that I had of men. Just fear. Nothing lived, but it was always there. An uneasiness, an uncertainty. Like, what is this? What is this relationship? What is this dynamic? This feels scary. And I even remember feeling that way around my father. Just uneasiness. But my father was nothing but loving to me and good to me in the capacity he had as an addict himself. So when I think about my experiences with men, I don't have any that are like treacherous. I don't. I spent my entire 20s and most of my 30s with women who were masculine identified, but never feeling quite fulfilled. And that's a newer understanding that I've arrived at. I believe some of my unhappiness in those spaces was not with the person, because I've been with really good people. Like really good people, good hearts, loving, supportive, caring, kind. Not everybody's perfect, but in the grand scheme of things, I had great options. I had great partnerships with people, with women. It was always me. It was always me. And that's taken away. Like, that's not saying they didn't have stuff, but I'm saying my uneasiness and my not experiencing like full pleasure and just feeling unfulfilled. That was me. That was me not understanding the work that needed doing, the unlearning that needed to take place, and the ability to be able to do it. Like the understanding that I have the power, I have the strength, I am equipped to conquer this fear or confront this fear. Just not knowing and feeling that, but not knowing how to put words to it. It's just all been a thing. So everybody dies. My mother dies in 2012, father 2017, grandmother 2018, ex 2019. Those last 3 deaths, I was in a relationship. Got married in 2020. And I'm still sorting through what happened as far as just the feelings I was having, or the non-feelings I was having, or whatever. Kind of still unpacking that, but I can recognize that the level of unfulfillment just escalated to a point where it was making us unhappy. I could not perform sexually. I couldn't do it. I really couldn't. And that's on me. It was me. And once I started doing mushrooms, I did mushrooms for the first time in 2021 and had a life-changing experience, an epiphany that I've never had before, or epiphanies in that one trip that I just never had before. It was magical. But even still, at that point, when I had that download, I did not understand the gravity of some of the images I was seeing, some of the innate feelings I was feeling. I didn't really understand. I mean, I understood. I didn't really feel courageous enough to confront what I saw. I was able to confront or embrace the easier parts, the parts that give you the warm and fuzzies, but embracing the hard stuff that pertained to this one part of my life I never gave attention to was very difficult. And so a year passed, and I finally got into therapy and started learning about like father wounds and just myself. I did a therapy called EMDR. It was life-changing, and I had to make some very hard decisions because I recognized that all of the pain that I was carrying around, like 95% of it wasn't mine. And I have my own pain, I have my own things, but going through those experiences and having all the loss that I've had in my life has really shown me everything is okay until it's not, and you'll know when it's not. And that I don't have to just be always in survival mode. I can live a life, a full whole life. And the first thing I had to do was be upfront about where I was, and that was the most challenging thing I've ever had to do. I'll go into that another time, what that looked like, and some of the information, some of the downloads I received during that challenging time, which was the last few months of 2022. But yeah, man, I want to share my story because it starts with the idea or the understanding that, like, our mothers be fucking us up sometimes. And because it doesn't look like a train wreck, or because you can't tell that some people are composed. I'm a more composed person, self-composed person. And I have learned to find language to express what I feel. And that gives me an outlet, which is a luxury, because not everybody can find the language to express all of the parts of them. Yeah. So I want to tell my story, and I want to tell all the lessons that have been downloaded, and there's been so many. And now that I'm dating and dating men, men only, after my revelation, I feel like I just have a lot to share, because part of it is something I looked up during this, difficult part of the separation. Something I looked up was, I would go on YouTube and look up black women leaving lesbianism, and the only thing that popped up in that search was Christian-centered content. Now, no shade about that, but it was not Jesus that put me on a different path. And when I did try to do it through the lens of religion, dogma, religious dogma, it never worked out. It never worked out because it felt like it fought against something in my spirit. But when I did it, because I had worked through my stuff and came to an understanding about self, knowledge of self, and who I am truly at my core, although I still have nerves about where I am sometimes, and it's a little scary a lot of the times, I feel at ease, I feel at peace, and I feel completely capable of doing the things that I am setting out to do. This has been a journey. It's been a journey. But I'm excited, I'm happy, and I'm open. Like, I'm really open, and I'm having a good time living in a receptive space. I'm learning receptivity, and that is a part of what walking in your feminine is being receptive to the blessings of life and having open hands, and that's to receive and to give. And I have a lot to give, a lot of love I want to give, and I have a lot that I'm overdue for receiving. So I've been kind of just leaning into that, receiving and practicing the art of receiving. It is not easy to trust someone to give you something and hope that after they learn you that they still want to give it to you. That is an act of vulnerability that I just didn't understand before, because I recognize that in these relationships I've been in, I probably haven't been giving all of me, because I've always been very transparent. I thought I was being vulnerable, and those two are not the same thing. I'm always very transparent, but vulnerability is saying, hey, you get to know this and you get to get close to me while I understand it better. And so that process is clumsy sometimes, but trusting someone to see you be clumsy figuring out your process is a level of vulnerability that I'm still not there yet. I'm still working through. So I want to share the experience of leaning into that level of vulnerability and being available for the blessings that come my way, and sharing with everyone the process of mental recalibration, emotional recalibration, spiritual recalibration, physical recalibration. I fail daily, and that awareness, I'm finally in a space where I can start to turn things around, because I fail daily, and I'm okay with failing because I recognize how success happens, and sometimes it's through failure. I'm moving at my own pace. I'm not in a rush to do any one thing. I'm enjoying discovering what I even want. There are some things that I'm clear as a bell on, because technically I've been sitting on the sidelines for 20 years watching the game. So when it comes to dating in this new space, I'm very clear, like very, very clear about a lot of things. But I know that there are spaces, there are blind spots. So I'm interested in understanding my blind spots and finding them, and I'm so curious about me. Who is that person that's in there that can do all the things, like boldly and unapologetically? And who is that part of me that receives effortlessly and gracefully and gratefully? Like, who is that person? Who am I when I am firing on all cylinders, when I'm taking ultimate care of my mind, my body, my spirit, when I'm doing things right? I fail daily, but I am okay, and I will be okay, because I get to try again. And it's on me. It's only on you to work on the failures. And for me, the failures are minute. They're very small, but that's how you lead up to big ones. So you have to start checking, and I call it, especially in dating, you reflect, refine, recalibrate. Every date you go on is an opportunity for you to know something about yourself you didn't know before, because people are mirrors, and we have to use our mirrors more responsibly. Dating for data has allowed me to understand myself. It doesn't matter. The person I'm on the date with, they matter, but they're giving me information that I didn't have before, because this is a different person that I'm understanding myself through. Sometimes there's nothing to learn, but 9 times out of 10, it's something there for you. And so all this information has been insightful and interesting, and I can't wait to share it. I'm still in the process of legal separation. I'll have a divorce under my belt soon. That's interesting. The grief process behind this part is interesting, with all the grief I deal with on a regular basis. So there's just so much to share. And if you come to see me for waxes, then we talk about this stuff sometimes, but I wanted to condense it and put it in one place so that it could help somebody, because it's not easy. And especially when you have lived a certain